WS,
the Overnight Underground News Podcast. Here's the headlines. How to tell the difference between rioting and protesting.
If you don't watch the violence, you'll never get desensitized to it.
The spread of unrest unsettles a nation. Trump and Twitter take off the gloves. Kim Jong-un battles sex and a new meaning for the term dead letter office. These stories and more on today's Overnight Underground News. I'm John Ford. If you've been paying attention, it now appears that burning and looting is quickly becoming a new national pastime. Protests and riots spread across the U.S. last night from their epicenter in Minneapolis. In the Twin Cities, looting, burning, and general mayhem trumped the rule of law as angry and lawless citizens continued their revenge against the police and their city over the death of George Floyd. The National Guard rolled into Minneapolis early Friday morning following a night that saw more buildings, businesses, and a police station in flames, and curiously, the arrest of a CNN broadcaster.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Meanwhile, according to NBC host Craig Melvin, NBC has banned its reporters from using the word riot to describe their coverage of the Minneapolis Happy Fun Time party happening on the city streets.
I always kind of take a small truth and embellish it into, well, a huge lie.
As soldiers rolled in to protect firefighters Friday morning, the rioters and protesters appeared to mostly call it a day and blended back into the shadows of a city in cinders.
What's the plan and who's in charge right now in the city?
There is a lot of pain and anger right now in our city. I understand that. Our entire city recognizes that. What we have seen over the past several hours and the past couple of nights in terms of looting is unacceptable.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, although he might consider changing his name to Jacob Fail after 3 days of conflagration and anarchy in Minneapolis.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Protests and rioting spread throughout the U.S. to New York City's Union Square, Portland, Denver, Louisville, and Columbus, Ohio, where the unrest targeted the Ohio State House, with rioters smashing windows and gaining entry to the building before police turned them back. In Louisville, 7 protesters were wounded from gunfire. Chances are, it's not going to be a pleasant weekend in America. I'm not sure what all this rioting and looting is supposed to accomplish. It's never solved anything in the past and arguably has only made many racial issues in the U.S. even more volatile. In the end, all the violence and lawlessness may only lead to a political knee-jerk to the right for safety and rule of law. And of course, the re-election of Trump.
It's not true. It's absolutely not true.
Trump tweeted his reaction to the unrest of the country, and the post was first flagged by Twitter and later hidden by the Twitterati for, quote, glorifying violence, and of course breaking those old twatter terms of service. The twart from the Prez drew criticism. Come on, he attracts criticism like a fly to shit for allegedly being insensitive to the situation in Minneapolis and calling for violent action against looters. Yesterday, Trump signed an executive order targeting social media and Twitter in particular for regulation from the government over what the president sees as censorship of the right on the platform. The real sin here is no one on the right or the left is really talking about free speech, just more regulation from the government, specifically to Section 230 of the so-called Communications Decency Act. That law and section allows online platforms to moderate user content and at the same time avoid the liability of being a publisher. All that being said, let's face it, this whole social media thing was an incredibly stupid and delusional idea in the first place. It's turned into an endless fountain of vapid, flowing bullshit.
It was all bullshit.
California Congresswoman Maxine Waters told TMZ on Thursday that she places the blame for the killing of Floyd George in Minneapolis squarely on the shoulders of President Trump.
I'm reflecting on all of the killings of young black men in particular at the hands of the police and at the hands of, these white supremacists. And I'm thinking about the way that the president conducts himself. In a way, he's dog whistling. And I think that they're feeling that they can get away with this kind of treatment.
That should garner Waters a few more votes in her district.
I'm Joe Biden. I this message.
The next time you think it'd be fun to jump in front of a reporter's camera while they're doing a live shot and shouting whatever the hell you want, you might want to rethink again about your cunning little plan. An Illinois man was busted after allegedly grabbing a TV reporter during a live broadcast and yelling, "Fuck her," right in the pussy.
Oh, no, I wouldn't like that. Neither would my daughter.
The New York Post reports that WGN TV reporter Gaynor Hall was giving a weather update when the 20-year-old Eric Farina ran in front of the camera, grabbed Hall, and uttered the phrase that must be Farina was charged with battery and disorderly conduct and later released on $2,500 bond.
Bond. James Bond.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has moved on from his war against the Sea of Japan to a war on sex.
Why does everything you have to say, why does it have to revolve around sex?
According to The Express, the North Korean dictator believes there is a problem with immorality among the country's teenagers and is declaring their, quote, impure acts to be treasonous.
I totally disagree with this permissive philosophy.
Kim is peeved over the alleged behavior of sex-craved teenagers and is blaming the, quote, decadent capitalist influences, including pornography, that has been smuggled in over the Chinese border.
There's so much porn!
In the words of Patrick Henry, if this be treason, make the most of it. Talk about the dead letter office. A woman in Montana is claiming that the remains of her dead husband are lost in the limbo of the postal system. Christine Tyler told KTVQ News that her husband died from coronavirus in a Spanish hospital, and now she's just trying to track down her husband's remains, which she says appear to be lost in the mail.
Dallas, he went to Chicago, and from Chicago, we have no idea where he's at.
Maybe good old Donald is secretly infiltrating the postal system to commit dead letter voter fraud.
Vote early, vote often.
NEWS. A mostly correct and occasionally incomplete transcript and links to reference sources and articles of this Overnight Underground can be found at overnightunderground.com.